Hey, what's going on, everybody? Manny back at it again, man. Thank you so much for stopping by. Welcome to DFS Zone. I'm going to be going over today's 9-game slate in the association, but before I get started, like always, I appreciate you guys drop a like. It helps me out a whole lot. Comment down below. Let me know what you think about this upcoming slate. We got a 9-gamer today. Who you like, who you don't like. Consider subscribing to the channel if you're looking for some NBA information, some stacks, some team stacks, just some suggestions as far as players, some possible options on a daily basis, Monday through Friday, because I don't do videos Saturday and Sunday, at least while the NFL is going on. Consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already, and don't forget to put on the notification bell. This way, when I upload a video, you'll be able to get notified right away, and you'll be able to take a look at that. Okay. With that being said, 9-game slate. Today is Monday, November the 1st. I hope everyone had a very nice Halloween. I hope you guys had a great weekend of playing daily fantasy sports. If you were an NFL DFS player as well, hopefully you made some money like myself yesterday. That'd be great. But now it's back to the NBA, man. So let's get to it. The new format, I'm going to go over each one player that I kind of stands out for me right now in each position. And then I'm going to come back at the end and be able to discuss a little bit more of some other options you can look at point guard, shooting guard, and so on and so forth. And I'm going to discuss possibly one or two game stacks that I'm looking at to possibly play today. All right, so let's get right to the top. So at point guard, at the top, man, today my favorite play at the moment is Damian Lillard. I mean, I know he's coming in. He's on the front end of a back-to-back. But at 8,300, I mean, and I know he had an awful game last night. I mean, he shot last night 25% from the floor and 14% from three. I mean, that's a lousy night. But at some point or another, Damian Lillard is going to come through. It may be tonight. And again, this is all probability. This is what we're playing every single day. Every time we play these games, these players got to go out there and play. And hopefully everything pans out according to who they're playing against, who's defending them, and how well they're shooting. We don't know if he's having any injuries or not, or he's not just, but his shots are not going down. And at some point or another, for as many minutes he plays and as many shots he takes on this team, he's going to need to come through some nights. And at one point or another, he's going to get hot. So I like that price tag. At 8,300, it's just a bargain to have a Damian Lillard with his upside at this price tag. But his numbers are not going to look pretty. And, it's like I said, last night he shot 25%, 5 of 20, and 2 of 14 from the floor. As you can see, he only played 37 big minutes. He only put up 14 points, 4 rebounds. He did have 12 huge assists. But imagine if his shots went down. Imagine if he just hit 50% of his 20 shots. He would have been a lot better night for fantasy, and he would have been a lot better for his own stats as well. But he's coming in 18 points per game, about close to 4 rebounds a game, nearly 9 assists, 33.7 fantasy points per game. He has huge upside, as we all know. He's capable of getting you 50, 60 any given night, and tonight might be that night. His previous game, the previous game before this one, he had one of his better shooting nights. He shot 53% from the floor that night and 71% from three. And that was against the Clippers, so not bad at all. He's averaging 18 shots from the floor per game thus far at 29% usage rate. And like I said, at some point or another, he's going to have a big night. His last 3 games versus Philly, 46.9 fantasy points, pretty much a 47 spot. He had a 65 the game before that and a 51 spot before that. So pretty much averaging more than 54, 55 fantasy points against the Philly team over the last 3 meetings. He shot in those games 22 shots per game from the floor, 13 to 14 average 3-pointers, and he actually had a 34% usage rate. Again, I love the matchup. Philly allowing 43.7 fantasy points per game to opposing point guards thus far this year. They gave up Devontae Graham. They gave up to him 18 points, 1 rebound, 5 assists. Harden put up 27 and 8. And Kemba Walker of my Knicks. As anybody knows me, I am a Met fan and a Knicks fan and a Jet fan. So Kemba Walker, 19, 5, and 2. Was one of the guys that put up some nice numbers against him. So I like this matchup for Damian Lillard against Philly. The only thing is he's been shooting poorly, and he's also on the front end of a back-to-back. But the price tag is pretty darn good. All right, so Damian Lillard there at shooting guard. You got Paul George at the top. I'm coming down to another guy that has a good, decent matchup, and he's going to need to put up some points, and that's SGA. SGA coming in here, 22 points per game, for almost 5 rebounds a game, nearly 4 assists, 33.6 fantasy points per game. He's at 7,200. You need about 36. We know he has 40-point upside, can get you 50-point upside. He had a 52-point game against Philly where he shot incredibly well. Obviously, 38 minutes. He's playing more than 30 plus minutes a game thus far, and he is capable of putting up some huge number. And he's also a pretty good defender. He's shooting 45% from the floor thus far this year, 33% from three. He's taking on average 16 to 17 shots a game. He's an integral part, very important piece to the OKC team as far as offensively. So we know he's going to get his usage. We know he's going to take shots. It's just a matter of burying the shots and playing well and getting some peripherals. He's capable of getting you some steals. So we're looking for a big game. Again, shooting 16, 17 shots from the floor, 7 or 8 of them from three on average, and at a usage rate of almost 28%. And, last game versus LA, the Clippers, he put up a 39 spot. The game before that, he put 48.6, nearly 49. Okay, but from the floor, he pretty much buried them with 23 points from the floor. And the other game, he put up 30. The Clippers versus point guards, they definitely have been struggling. 49.4 fantasy points per game to opposing point guards thus far this year. They gave a 25, 4, and 6 to Damian Lillard and 16, 4, and 6. And this is in the last 2 games to Darius Garland of the Cleveland Cavaliers. So SGA is someone you can consider. I like him at this present moment. Remember, the guys I'm discussing now doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to stay with those guys. I just wanted to be able to share with you some players that I think stand out right now as far as some general information. And then, of course, there are going to be some others I'm going to discuss after. There are also options that I am also considering. So everyone that I discuss here are players that I'm planning to play. But maybe the 5 that I put on the screen here might not be all intact by the end of the night before lock. All right, so as small forward at the top, we got Paul George, and we know Paul George is shooting guard and small forward eligible. Here, I'm going with somebody. I normally don't play him a whole lot. I played him a few times last year. He came through, but Michael Porter Jr. 6,200 stands out to me in this matchup. I like the Denver-Memphis game a whole lot for today. He's at 6,200. You need about 31 to me value. He's more than capable of getting this. He's another one that's been struggling a little bit with his shot. He's only averaging 11 points a game pretty much. He's about 11 points a game, 6 rebounds, nearly 2.5 assists, 24.5 fantasy points per game. And 2 out of his last 3, as you can see here, or maybe the 3 out of the last 4, he's been at 25 fantasy points or better with his highest game at 31. He's actually had a 33 against Phoenix in his first game. He just needs to shoot better. All right. His shooting is only 33% from the floor thus far and 25% from 3. I mean, it's not going to get it done, but he is getting enough shots, about 12 to 13 a game, 5 or 6 from 3, and his usage rate is okay at 21%. But again, if he's burying his shots, there is obviously, if the team sees that you're shooting well, they're going to obviously give him more opportunities. So his usage rate will go up as soon as he can get going. Tonight is one of those nights where I feel some of these guys are in some pretty good matchups that if they start shooting and hitting their shots, they can have a fairly big night, starting with Damian Lillard and then, of course, with SGA. And now we got Michael Porter Jr. So he's going up against Memphis. Matter of fact, the last time he played Memphis, he put up 46.4 fantasy points per game. He did that with 27% usage rate and 36 minutes of play. He is playing a little over 30 minutes a game right now, so it's an opportunity. And in that particular matchup, he took 19 shots. He hit 12 of 19 from the floor and 3 of 6 from 3. So he had a fantastic shooting night. And if he's able to do that here again today, there's a great opportunity for him to have some huge numbers. Going up against Memphis, they're allowing the second most fantasy points per game to opposing small forwards, 50.7 fantasy points per game, nearly a 51 spot on average. They also have the 4th most points allowed to small forwards at 26.5 points per game. And we know that he's nowhere near going to get 10, 20, 25 points from the floor, but we need him to put a whole balanced attack here, rebounds, some assists, and get you a couple of steals. He's in a great spot here, man, especially with the rebounds. The rebounds, they've also been coughing up about 9 on average a game, Memphis, 2 small forwards. Memphis also has allowed 25, 5, and 7 to Jimmy Butler and 16 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists to Mr. Wiggins of Golden State over the course of the last 2 games. So Michael Porter Jr. is in play for me here at the moment. At power forward, we're going to go one of the rookies here, and it's going to be Mr. Evan Mobley. Evan Mobley at 6,600. You need about 32, 33 to me value. He's averaging 33. He is putting up 13 points, pretty much almost 8 rebounds a game, almost 3 assists. 33 fantasy points per game on average as well. He did have a 40 spot, 48 spot, 42 spot. So he's hit 40 plus in three games thus far out of the first 7 games he has played. Didn't play particularly well in the last game, 21 minutes. Also, I think the game was a little out of hand. But 40-point upside, as we could see already, in a pretty good matchup. Obviously, no history as a rookie. He's shooting 50% from the floor right now, thus far this year after 7 games, 29% from 3, taking 10 to 11 shots a game. And he's averaging pretty much a point per minute. He's going up against Charlotte. Charlotte is allowing the 5th most fantasy points per game to opposing power forwards. And they're giving up 50.9 fantasy points per game. So this is a game where you focus on Cleveland's front court, which is pretty strong with Mobley and, of course, with Jared Allen. And then focus on the Charlotte backcourt of maybe Terry Rozier, Terry Rozier, LaMelo Ball, and that might be a good way to go if you want to stack up that game. We go to now center. At center at the top is my man, the Joker. And the Joker is who listen, the center spot is a good spot today with Embiid, Towns, and Jokic. I think any one of the three you're okay with if you're going to pay up. I think that's the area to pay up if you're looking at all the guys today. Other than that, I do like Moran here, but at 9,900 is pretty hefty. I will probably, and then Paul George is in a good spot against OKC if they can keep that game close. That's the only drawback there is that the Clippers play very well. OKC could be falling behind early. But Morant should be okay in this game tonight. But we go to center. Like I said, I do like Jokic there. And I have no problem with Towns. I think I'm going to have some exposure to Towns as well. And Embiid just due to the matchup. But more so right now, one that stands out here is Jokic. He's had great success against his team as well. So 11,200. He needs about 56 to me value. His last game was a monstrous one. He's averaging 24, 15, and 5, pretty much almost 6 assists a game, 53 fantasy points. He did put up a huge 64-point game. He had a 67-point game against San Antonio early in the year. This is against Towns and all. And nonetheless, it almost doesn't matter who you put in front of him. He's one of the better players in the league, period, as far as the center spot. But 36 minutes from the floor, 26 and 19, a double-double. And you're going to get, that's what you can get from Jokic from the Joker is you can get 20-plus points a game, which he's been averaging, and you can get a lot of double-doubles. He has 5 out of his 6 games he has played with a double-double, and he's a guy that definitely dishes the ball very well for a big man. And, of course, he can get you those peripherals with some steals and blocks. So Jokic is in play for me, man. I'm willing to pay up for him as the top stud today. He's shooting 60% from the floor, 42% from 3 thus far this year, which is fabulous for a big man, taking 16 to 17 shots a game at a 31% usage rate. So Jokic, he's just a master. He's just a monster. What is it that he cannot do? He does it pretty much all. His last 3 games against Memphis, 49.5, pretty much almost a 50 spot. He did have a huge 73-point game and a 61-point game. So he's in a good position here. I think he's in a great spot to possibly ball out here and get you 55 or better. I really think he's going to get 60 or more tonight. So I do like him there a whole lot. Memphis allowing the 4th most fantasy points per game to opposing centers at 59 fantasy points per game. They did give up to Nurkic of Portland 17.8, and they gave up 20. They gave him 17 points and 8 rebounds. AD of LA put up 22, 8, and 2 against these guys. So we should see Jokic at least get over his 20 points per game, and then it's just a matter of how many blocks and steals and how many rebounds and assists he get. He may even get a double-double or triple-double again. He's pretty much almost locked in to get a double-double all the time. Other center spots, now that right here at center, instead of going right to point guard, we'll go right to centers right here. Other options you may have at center, like I already mentioned, Towns, not in a bad spot. Karl Anthony Towns, you can go there. I'm okay with Towns. Embiid, the same situation with Embiid. I don't think that he's in a bad spot. Vucevic stands out here against the Knicks. The Knicks have had some issues at center. As far as scoring is concerned, I have them here. Excuse me, not the Knicks, Boston. Excuse me. Boston here has allowed 54.8 fantasy points per game to opposing centers thus far this year. That's pretty high. It's almost the second or third most in the league. So Vucevic in a good spot at 8,400. Montrezl Harrell will be in a nice spot here against Atlanta, especially if there's no Gafford. I don't know if Gafford is playing or not, but if he is, they usually split the time. But as long as Gafford is out, or we hear that he's going to be in a minutes restriction, then Harrell, if he gets 25 to 30 minutes or over 30 minutes, he's definitely someone you got to lock in there, or at least not lock in there, but you have to have some consideration. Other other center spots, Bamba definitely stands out with me. I like Mobley. You can always put Mobley, who I put here so far at power forward. You can always play him as a center. He's center and power forward eligible. Same thing with Mo Bamba at 6,600 against Minnesota. I think Minnesota is going to need to rebound quite a bit with Towns, and I think Bamba is going to have to come in there and do his part to keep Orlando in this game. And that's the only drawback is, can Orlando keep the game close? And Orlando is one of those teams that like to play that half court. And at the same time, they could be pretty pesky with the defense. And, they're just really like a grindy team. So Mo Bamba, not in a bad spot at 6,600. John Collins here, I do like a lot of John Collins. I mean, he's done well against Washington. He could be someone you can consider here. Washington giving up 46.8 fantasy points per game to opposing power forwards. So John Collins could be in a good spot here, but he hasn't been really, putting up. I mean, this is pretty much has been his price range, but he's been a 7K, 7,500K player in the past. So he definitely has some upside here. He could possibly ball out and get you a 45, 50 spot here at 65, and that's what you really want to get for that price tag. Then we come down a little lower. You got Steven Adams here is at 6,100, and Turner with that San Antonio. I think Indianapolis has some advantage up front, and I think Indy with Turner and Sabonis over San Antonio's front court definitely is an advantage there, where I think either one of those guys can have a good game. So you could consider those guys. Mason Plumlee at 5,900, needing 29. Is definitely someone you can consider as well. And you never know with Mitchell Robinson, who's capable of getting you a double-double, can get you some blocks. So he could be dangerous here as well. I think the Knicks up front, could be a little dominant here against Toronto as well, with Robinson over Achua. And there's a possibility Scotty Barnes might be out, so that's going to hurt Toronto a whole lot there with Julius Randle up front as well. So an advantage in the front court for the Knickerbockers tonight, especially if Scotty Barnes is out. We go backwards now. We go to point guard. At point guard, other options that you may have that you may want to consider. Obviously, I mentioned already that Ja Morant is definitely in play in this matchup against Denver, so you could go that route. I don't see no reason why not. If we look at the Denver, I don't think you can go wrong with Morant. Bradley Beal matchup against Atlanta. I do think this is a nice game that you could possibly stack. Bradley Beal will be one of those guys you can definitely get in here. He's been balling out. He's had a couple of 50-point games. We know he's capable of getting you 50 or better any given night. Granted, he does have Dinwiddie, Kuzma, and possibly Harrell and Gafford back. But nonetheless, I think those guys can get it done. And I think that's not a bad game that you can actually look at to get 5 or 6 pieces from. Murray here is in a great spot too. Don't love his price tag being this high, but he's already showing that he's capable of being this price tag. And I like the matchup. I think with Indy being the second most, giving up the second most fantasy points to opposing point guards at 54.2, which I put here on my notes, that is pretty impressive there. So he's in a good spot here. They could probably ball out Atlanta. Trae Young at 8,700, that's pretty cheap for Trae Young. We normally see this guy at least over 9K. So we're getting a little discount on him. I think Trae Young here, same thing. He's going up against Washington. Washington has allowed 45.8 fantasy points per game to opposing point guards. So he's an option. Got to watch this news here with Malcolm Brogdon. If he is out and Karis LeVert is out, then you can definitely pivot to a McConnell will be in play. Definitely Sabonis will be in play, which I mentioned before. So that's something to watch right there. And I think that Indy has an advantage over San Antonio for sure in the front court, whereas I believe if Brogdon is out, I do believe, and Karis LeVert is out, then I definitely believe that Murray and White and maybe even Keldon Johnson are definitely good plays here against Indy. And LaMelo Ball, same situation here against Charlotte. He's on the front end of a back-to-back. He had a monster game last night. He's 7,700, and if he's going to keep putting up 40, 45 spots, then he is definitely priced below market right now at 7,700. So I think he is definitely an option tonight. It may hurt that Rozier is back, but Rozier is not probably 100%. I don't know how many minutes he played last night, but I know LaMelo Ball is definitely an option here in my eyes. So he's on my player pool. And, of course, we have SGA, which I already told you. I like him as shooting guard. Spencer Dinwiddie, same thing. If you're going to stack up that Washington-Atlanta game, he is definitely someone you got to definitely consider. Colin Sexton, not in a bad spot as well. Mr. Sexton here. He's going up against Charlotte again, 42.5 fantasy points per game to opposing shooting guards. So Colin Sexton, who gets quite a bit of usage and takes quite a bit of shots for the Cleveland Cavaliers, maybe an option here. I've only played him maybe like twice ever. So, I mean, but I think he's definitely on my list right now, someone to consider as well. Derek White is always someone to consider. Kimbo Walker at 6,000, getting a little hot. Price tag is coming up. If he has another monster game for my New York Knicks tonight, then, we're going to start seeing him at 63, 64, 6,500. He is capable of being a 7K, so we're still getting him at a little bit of a discount, but that's only if he's shooting the ball well and we keep him playing. If he plays 25, if he plays 28 plus minutes, then it's a good shot. He can definitely make value there. DeAnthony Melton is definitely in play for me again. He's just getting quite a bit of usage, taking plenty of shots. He's kind of like the right-hand man other than Bane and Morant on this Memphis team. That backcourt of those guys, Melton, Bane, and Morant, are just been fantastic for Memphis. That's what's going to keep this game fairly close here today. And going down a little lower, like I said, McConnell will be someone you can consider there. Shaq Milton came already. He's played 2 games, 4,500. He's been pretty much putting up more than 1 fantasy point per minute. Can definitely be someone you can consider there as well. And that's it. So we go to shooting guard. The shooting guard, Paul George in play. I already talked about him. Murray's in play. Not high on McCollum here today against Philly. Prefer Lillard. Zach LaVine, not a bad situation here. He's been, he's not in a bad spot. 8,100, you need 40. Boston has the 3rd worst allowing fantasy points per game, 45.2 to opposing shooting guards. Then we've got Fred VanVleet going up against New York. It's going to be a tough spot for VanVleet. I mean, New York has been playing pretty well defensively across the board. If there is a weak area, it might be where he is at. So we know that he's going to take a lot of shots, especially if they don't even have Mr. Barnes, the young rookie, there tonight. It's going to be on him and maybe OG Anunoby to be able to put up some huge number. I do like DeMar DeRozan here. So, you could go either or. You could pivot from LaVine, or you can come down $400 and get DeRozan against Boston. I'm okay with it. I think that's not a bad spot. Atlanta has been allowing, what we got here? Atlanta's been allowing almost 42 fantasy points per game to shooting. Excuse me, Atlanta. I'm confusing the team. Sorry. That's Chicago versus Boston. I'm saying Boston has been allowing 42 fantasy points per game. So there's an opportunity there. OG Anunoby, obviously, because they're going to need his assistance with rebounding, scoring, and much more against the Knicks, especially if Barnes is out. 7,300 could be someone to consider. Any cheap guys, Giddey up there, definitely like him in that spot. Willie Barton here for Denver in his matchup against Memphis is an option. Of course, Desmond Bane, 5,800. Ricky Rubio's been playing fairly well for Cleveland. Kelly Oubre had a monster game last night, but he is one of those guys that can be streaky, have a hot game or two, and then falter out. So I don't know. He's in the front end of a back-to-back. We don't know if anybody, maybe Terry Rozier is going to get a limits restriction, because he's coming back from injury. So that might open up the door for Oubre, something to consider there. Gary Trent for Toronto may be an option. He may get a bump in minutes if Scotty Barnes is out, and they may need more minutes from Trent. He's playing pretty good minutes, too, for that price tag. Maxey in play. McConnell will be in play, obviously, if Mr. Brogdon is out. And I like Caruso a little bit coming off the bench. Vessel is always someone to consider. I've already mentioned Milton. Let's go over the small forward. Small forward at the top, Paul George is definitely in play, which I mentioned before. I'm not too high on the Brown or Tatum, but I think one of the two obviously is going to pop off like usual. DeRozan, I already mentioned, is in play. OG's in play. Kyle Kuzma in play, especially if you're going to stack up the team. I think that, they're going to stack up the game. I think that he's an option there. Atlanta has had some vulnerability against power forwards. Let's see what we have here. Atlanta, has given up 46.7 fantasy points per game. He's averaging 35. Again, follow the news. Keep on top of this. Scotty Barnes news may open up some value for Toronto. Willie Barton in play. RJ Barrett had a monster game for my Knicks the other night. I just don't know. We want to wait to see him and see if he can continue to do that. Or Oubre, I just thought not a whole lot I like here at all. Nicholas Batum, definitely an option at 4,600. He's playing about 20 minutes a game. Luke Kennard, for this price tag, he does get over 20 minutes when he does play. Danny Green, same thing. They're kind of like a point per minute players each. And I think that's it, at least for me. Power forward, Julius Randle always seems to be in play, but, it's tough with the Knicks now because we have Kimbo who's playing really, really well. RJ Barrett had his game last night, the last game out. So we don't know. Tonight may be Julius Randle's night where he balls out, but he is pretty good. He's someone to consider. Domantas Sabonis, I will love a whole lot more at 9,200 if there is no Brogdon, and even more so if there is no Brogdon and LeVert. So Sabonis in play. Harrell in play if there's no Gafford. Al Horford has been playing really well for Boston on his comeback, or coming back to Boston. I guess, Boston is the place he probably is going to be the best he's going to be. Robert Williams in play. Not so much in play, especially the way Horford has been playing, but I know they've been playing, he's been playing center, he's been playing power forward. So we'll see. Jared Allen as well as Mobley, either one are in play. I'm just favoring the young kid today, Mobley, over Allen. I think both of them can have an advantage today in this matchup. Mo Bamba in play. I told you I'm okay with John Collins, but I prefer him in the power forward spot in the slate. Miles Turner, sneaky play like I mentioned before for center spot. As you can see, he's also power forward eligible. Keldon Johnson, front court for San Antonio. The back court for San Antonio being a 3. Like I said, from the 4-5, I think Indy has the advantage over San Antonio, and I think with Johnson, White, and Murray, I think San Antonio has the backcourt advantage. Aaron Gordon could possibly be an option today against for Denver. Achua here versus the Knicks. You're going to need him for rebounding. Batum, Bouchard might get some bumping minutes, especially Scotty Barnes is out, so keep that in mind. Same thing with Birch here. He's also playing with Toronto. These guys are the guys that have been coming off the bench and playing the front court for Toronto. One of them might be the one that's going to get more time. Grant Williams, possible option there, 4,100. Let's see how many minutes he played last. Yeah, he's played 24 minutes in pretty much 3 out of the last 4 games. Could be an option. Derek Favors. Nah, that's it. I'm not a favorite. And that's pretty much it. I already went over the centers. So that's where we at, folks. I mean, those are the players I'm looking at right now. These are the 5 that I'm favoring at the moment. Remember, follow the news. Anything can change. I got to get more into, being on Twitter. It's just so consuming, man. I come home from work. I look over the lineups again. I got to worry about my son with his homework. I check with my kids to make sure they're done with their work. It's very difficult, and I would love to get back on Twitter or something, or at least come back to the YouTube page, to the comment section, and just basically let you guys know which 5 players I already went with, if I'm going to stay with the 5 I have discussed here on the video, or any of the other options that came up, or any value that came up. But I'm going to slowly but surely, as the season progresses, I will try to make notes and get out there and give you that information. But that's where I pretty much stand. We're going to go over quickly a game stack or so, if I can find it. So, and at the moment, I'm sorry, I'm trying to find it. Where is my game stack? Okay, well, anyway, it does not matter. The game stack, I don't know what I did with my sheet. I mixed it up with somewhere. But the games that I'm looking at for game stack, Washington, Atlanta, Denver, Memphis are the top ones. So let's look at Denver and Memphis. If you wanted to stack this game, obviously I want Jokic in that lineup. But when you look at it overall, it'll be Jokic, Morant. Then I'm not high on Jackson, but obviously he's an option. Obviously I will have Porter in there. So that's 2 Denver Nuggets. Then I'll probably take Milton and possibly Bane as well. So I'm looking at 3 Memphis Grizzlies and possibly 2 or 3 with Barton or a Michael Porter with either Aaron Gordon because of the front court. I really believe that you got to expose Memphis with the front court. So either go with Gordon, who's 5,300, or basically go with Michael Porter at 6,200, and then you add in there Willie Barton. You can do the DeAnthony Milton. I'm not high on Morris for Denver and Jokic. So there is a possibility you can get those guys in. The same thing could be said with the front court, back court advantage, depending on the game for San Antonio and Indianapolis. Washington, Atlanta is going to be fairly close too. I think Atlanta's like 4 or 5 point favorite at home. But you got Bradley Beal, Trae Young. I think you could definitely get them in that stack. If we know for a fact Gafford is out, then you definitely want to consider Harrell, Kuzma up front. That's going to give you that rebounding, strength for Washington. And the backcourt, so you figure Dinwiddie, Kuzma, Harrell, and Beal pretty much for Washington, and then Young, obviously, and maybe John Collins for the Atlanta Hawks. But right now, the game time decision on Gafford could be the one thing. But I think those are the 2 that I'm really targeting the most at the moment. I don't know. But That's what I'm looking at. I think those two games are games that you could definitely consider for stacking. There's enough room there. Then, there are some teams that, are pretty low price, and you could probably get some. Cleveland, Charlotte may be a sneaky game, considering Charlotte playing on the front end of a back-to-back. Cleveland had a whole day's rest or two, so that could be a possibility and an option there as well. But that's pretty much it, ladies and gentlemen, man. There goes the guys: Damian Lillard, SGA, Porter, Mobley, Jokic. And then, like I said, the game stacks of Denver, Memphis, Washington, Atlanta. Those are the two I'm kind of like targeting or looking at right now at this present time. Again, follow along, man. Drop a like on the video. Comment down below. Let me know what you think of the video. Today's 9-game slate. Who you like? Do you like any of the game stacks like I do? And so on and so forth. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And, of course, don't forget to put on your notification bell. This way you don't miss out on any of my upcoming videos. And with that, I wish you a lot of luck, man. Peace.